yeah, so that's something. So what you're doing before bed, giant impact, right?
Yep.
For all those reasons. Um, Another aspect is, which already goes into it, but specifically, and we could have a whole other episode on this, which we're kind of checking away anyways in terms of how different exercises affect your blood sugar. But
Hmm.
exercising close to bedtime
Yeah.
affects blood sugar at night and overall insulin sensitivity. So being aware of that, you might interact with another non-diabetic and say they can't work out, they can't lift or run before bed because they might not be able to get to sleep.
Yeah.
And that literally is an impact on blood sugar. So it's
Hmm.
definitely going to impact a type 1 as well.
Yep. Yeah. You have. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with that because, or a lot of points you can make with that because, like, if you work out before close to bedtime, one, any person who works out close to bedtime probably gonna impact their sleep negatively because you have a lot
Mm.
of stuff flowing,
A lot of
adrenaline, you have
hormones,
all
yeah.
these hormones going around that are not necessarily inducive to good sleep. And
Mhm.
then at the same time, if it's
So wait,
something, go ahead.
so pause real fast. So even your non-diabetic patients, like if you're just working with somebody holistically in your office, and they're asking about exercise, as a general rule, you will tell them try not to exercise close to bedtime.
If they ask me, like, or they say, like, I'm working out at like 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. or 8 p.m., depending
Mhm.
on what their bedtime is, it's like, yeah, probably not a good idea. Let's maybe try to do it before work or, you know, earlier in the day.
Got it.
Um, like ultimately, if they're exercising, I'm usually pretty happy because sometimes it's really hard to get people to exercise anyways.
True
So
that.
ultimately, I think some exercise is better than no exercise, no matter what time it is. But if we can structure it so that way it's not right before bed, then that's going to be the best. So if we can do
Mhm.
it maybe before supper and let supper be later, that's probably a little bit better. Um, but yeah,
Gotcha. Okay. So I interrupted your thought on overall, unless you already expanded on it, of exercise and blood sugar before bedtime, the hormonal soup. You're
yeah,
about to elaborate
yeah.
on a little
Well,
bit
and then
more.
you have when you add in a type 1 diabetics perspective, you have what that's what that's going to do to your blood sugar because especially immediately after some form of exercise, that's usually when the biggest insulin sensitivity impact is going to occur. So your basal rates may be affected more so during that time than any other, and therefore you may be fighting lows through your sleeping. And then it also can change based off of what type of exercise that is. So if it's like very similar to what you do anyways, so like normally you will run in the morning, but you didn't have time to run this morning, so you ran at night before
Mm,
close to when you went to bed. It's probably not going to have a crazy, like a really large impact on your blood sugar. Uh, you may still, drop a little bit low or stay slightly lower than you normally do. However, if you don't usually work out at all and then you do some form of exercise right before you go to bed, you're going to have a big impact on your blood sugar. And that's going to
mhm.
be just the really chaotic event. And
Right.
I'm trying to juggle that at night. So
Mhm.
there's a little bit of context with it too.
Absolutely. There's a whole lot of context. And I was just thinking about this, was it this morning when I was running? But idea for a book I had was specifically like categorizing so many different types of exercises,
Hmm.
and both with testimonials as well as actual pure literature reviews or studies on that specific exercise, as well as kind of third order, or more just biochemical and cell signaling descriptions of how those exercises work and how it affects blood sugars for type 1. And each chapter would be a different type of exercise. But point is, context matters a lot.
Oh
And I
yeah.
actually remember uh, probably one of the worst workouts I could have done before a bedtime. This was when I was training for my second marathon that I ran. And when I was doing that training cycle, it was the least amount of training I've done for my 3 marathons that I've run. And because I was so stressed with school and everything else going on at the time, and I was missing a lot of training days. But one day that you cannot miss in marathon training is your long runs. And I can't remember what day it was, but I think it was, I don't even think this was a long run, but it was a longer run. And this was like this was supposed to be like a 17 miler or something like that. And for whatever reason, I decided that starting the run at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. In summer in St. Louis was a great idea. The way I always frame and guess, even though it was never this, it was always a little bit fast, but for always time's sake, in my mind, I still to this day think about 10-minute miles. And so it's like, well, if I'm going to run 17 miles, that's 170 minutes, right? And so that's, almost 3 hours of running.
Yeah.
And I think I was so undertrained at that time that when I started running at like 7, or maybe it was even later. Maybe it was like 7:30, like sunset in summertime was actually happening. So maybe it was like closer to 8 p.m. I don't even know.
I say sunset in the summertime is like
8:39.
9.
Yeah. So it was super late when I started this run. It was so silly. And I start this run and I'm undertrained. And so not only am I late, had a full day, probably on low sleep during this run, but I can't finish it. And I get like 13, 14 miles in, and then I end up like walking, running, like I can make it, like it's fine. I just gotta get there, just however long it takes, Garrett. It's fine. However long it takes, just get it done. And I am physical was in so much pain, I had to call an Uber driver to pick me up. And this ends up being like 11:30 at night. This guy picks me up at a Taco Bell. And I'm like drenched in sweat. I got salt crystals on me because the hydration factor, and just spilling out electrolytes and 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 the guy picks me up so super late, and I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like I know I stank like this. This is bad for your car. I apologize. And so I get home and it's like midnight, and I'm able to pass out, but I can't remember the details. So the story of this context ends, but I can guarantee you my blood sugar was either went super high or super low. And I woke up several times, and in the context of how crazy that workout was, is by itself. Then you throw it at night, and then that's another anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. So anywhere from 13.3% to 33% of that day, then percentage of time in range, not in range, because of how silly that decision of working out before that nighttime and then going to bed immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
Total Garrett move, right?
Oh yes, classic Garrett.
Yeah. So there's a lot of nuances because we can, and we, like I said, starting to go into every now and then we'll do an episode of a specific type of workout. And there's so many nuances within individual workouts that type 1 needs to consider. But then you throw that on sleep, man, it just becomes a whole different ball game. And not ball game, you will end up, chances are, failing most times than not if you have a complicated workout followed by sleep immediately after, even if you can get to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So